Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mugdha Lele, and on behalf of the TechX.in team at Venture Center, I am happy to host the third wave of our Only One Team Awareness Talk series on innovation management. Today is the 16th talk in this wave of Only One Team, and today's topic discusses frugal and grassroots innovations. Our distinguished speaker for today is none other than famous Professor Anil Gupta. Let me briefly introduce Professor Gupta. Professor Gupta is a renowned scholar and a mentor for social innovators. Currently, he is serving as a visiting faculty at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, and the IIT Bombay. In fact, he has been a full-time professor at IIM Ahmedabad for over 35 years. He holds a PhD in management from Kurukshetra University and an MSc in biochemical genetics from Haryana Agricultural University, Hisar. Professor Gupta is the founder of the Honeybee Network, SRISTI, which is Society for Research and Initiatives for Sustainable Technologies and Institutions, GIAN, which is Grassroots Innovation Augmentation Network, and the National Innovation Foundation, all big institutes themselves. All these institutes are aimed at promoting grassroots innovations and sustainable development. His research focuses on grassroots innovations, sustainable resource management, and knowledge networks. Professor Gupta has been honored with several awards, most famous of them being the Padma Shri in 2004 and the CSR Bhatnagar Fellowship also. He has also led over 40 Shodh Yatras, which are learning walks across India aimed to discover and support grassroots innovators. With this brief introduction, please join me in welcoming Professor Anil Gupta to this session. And now handing over the session to you.
Thank you so much, Mugdha. I'm happy to be here and look forward to interact with all the participants that I see have joined this meeting virtually. Friends, what I'm going to do today is to talk about some of the lessons and lessons from our work over the last 4 decades, and then blow 5 myths which have grown around this concept, unfortunately. And I would say that when I try to tackle each of this myth, you will see so much more potential for frugal innovations emerging in all sectors, at all levels, in all domains. So the story begins with Honeybee Network, which tries to give voice, visibility, and velocity to creative and innovative people. And we try to blend both formal and informal science, try to see how an unknown, faceless person gets in touch with the network, gets an identity, and cross-pollination of ideas is a very fundamental principle. Giving back whatever we know and learn from people with or without value addition to the people is also a very important part. And of course, fair and just sharing of benefits. Now, why do we need to change the context, to change the content of discussion on frugal innovation? These are the 5 myths which I will deal with today. First, frugal innovations evolve in a resource-constrained environment only. Nothing wrong, more wrong than this. Frugality is about just affordability to the consumer, not to the environment. Frugal innovations are always less than what is possible in optimal innovation. They are some kind of intermediate solution. There is no trade-off possible between affordability and accuracy without compromising functionality. Frugality is about product and process, not about pedagogies. And all the 5 myths I'll share how you will see from the discussion that proceeds that actually speaking, first of all, resource constraint itself is a defective term. What is a resource? Is knowledge not a resource? Are only physical resources which are considered as a resource? If knowledge is a resource, then do we say that people at the grassroots level are also poor in knowledge? Surely not. So now let us look at material resource constrained environment. Is it true that frugal innovations emerge only in a materially resource constrained environment? Let us see this example. So this student, Ritika Ramchandran and Luda Wong from MIT, did something very interesting. They took the pine wood. You know, every tree has xylem and phloem. One takes moisture from bottom to top, another brings from top to bottom. They just took the wood piece of xylem and put it in a tube, and the least cost water filter was tested in the slums of India and found to be extremely good. What is more, they found that with slight improvement, it could even check E. coli and rotavirus in the lab test. Now, if you boil it after 2 years, and then it can last for almost 2 years after you dry it and store it. And the paper was published in Nature Communications. So high quality science, very low value material, extremely affordability, and no harm to the environment. And came from one of the materially resource-rich labs. So please never ever think that frugal innovation only emerged from materially resource-constrained environment. It is true, however, that large number of grassroots innovations emerged from materially constrained environment. That is true, but that is not a limiting condition. We must remember that innovations for and from grassroots face difficult transaction costs, different problems. So it is true that grassroots innovations will face very different problems than an MIT or NCL or venture center scientists will face. But the fact remains that under both conditions, frugal innovations can emerge with one blow. This is another example of a very frugal innovation. Any cycle can be converted into e-bicycle, and you take it out and then go to your office, come back, put it on, and then you're back. Large number of such, which state that modern science and technology can advance by using this knowledge. This is a practice we published way back in 90s that in Honeybee newsletter, that in Andhra Pradesh, when they have a pot, they keep a pot of milk while transplanting tobacco. Not that it is useful and it is advisable, but nevertheless, farmers cultivate it. And tobacco mosaic virus, if it is some seedlings are affected, by putting your hands in the milk, the spores get inactivated. In Gujarat, people put milk on the hoof of the cattle affected by foot and mouth disease. What is common in these two? These are both type 2 RNA viruses. And we did not, please mind you carefully, we did not recommend such a frugal solution for viral disease. But Ontario, Manitoba, Canada gave an advisory on their department's website that milk would be as good as anything else for controlling the viral on the farm tools and farm machinery. Now, please appreciate this, that is a very frugal solution, validated in one of the most prosperous countries. In no material constraint there. They didn't have to go for a frugal solution. Why did they go? Because that makes sense. So please appreciate that frugal innovations can emerge from an ecocentric and empathetic value system too. Then let me give you an example of that. So this we saw in Meghalaya, my favorite example. I never get tired of repeating this. So we asked them, why did you make full bridge? You could have made it of iron, you could have made it out of wood, wire, this and that, other material, concrete. The answer was, but we wanted to do something sustainable. Now here is a value ethics, which is triggering search for material. And what are the materials? They saw the roots of ficus species on both sides of the river. Look like rope. That's technology. But we can't pull it alone. You need group action. That's institution. So essentially, as you see, technology is like word, science is like alphabet, technology is like word, institutions are like grammar, culture is like thesaurus. Now here is an example. How do I trigger frugal innovation? So I want to give you a pedagogy tool. And you will see that it's not very difficult. Anyone, in any condition, in any organizational setting, or at domestic level, can generate frugal innovation. What do we do? we had a workshop of children at Rashtrapati Bhavan during the Festival of Innovation. And we got children from Nizamuddin slum. And I told them only two conditions. First, think of a cycle. All of you have seen cycle. Tell me the uses of cycle which is not relevant for transportation of people or transportation of goods. What came up? These ideas emerged in a few minutes. These kids could imagine so many different solutions. Winding wire through this turkey, blower, threshing paddy, cutting grass, harvesting, sugarcane juice extraction, and of course, so cleaning the road, pulling the water. All this only because of two steps. First, you have to invent now. Second, I don't want obvious to be answered. So the obvious was that cycle can be used for transportation, cycle can be used for carrying luggage. So as a pedagogic tool, I'm saying that all of you can try this experiment at your place, in your organization, in your teams, with your students. And you see, it will work. The reason is that we are so obsessed with the obvious that we're not able to think very creatively. But it is possible to think creatively, and children have demonstrated this. So many different solutions of cycle for innovation. Now, let me give you another example. These four girls from Tamil Nadu mentioned very clearly that, many times driving when the children are boarding or old people are boarding and they fall down, there are accidents and so on. So the simple answer, bus will not start if there is a visible light sensor on the steps. It will not let bus move till somebody is on the step. Such a good idea. I wish it is implemented in every public transport and private transport for that matter. It will save so many lives. It will save so many men, women having a child in their lap, one hand in the child, holding the child, another hand, they're boarding the bus. And it's not easy. And when there is a crowd, it's really, driver is in rush. But then driver will be helpless. If somebody is standing in the step, bus will not start. There are a large number of such examples. This is a favorite example again. Shalini, at that time, she was in class 8. She didn't do anything. She just observed a problem. What was the unmet need? Her grandfather couldn't use walker on the stairs. She said, can front legs become flexible? And our teammate and I made it possible. So when you go down, the front leg becomes taller. When you go up, the front leg becomes shorter. This was licensed to a company. She got royalty. So what is the crux of the matter is that sometimes you have to identify not only unmet, but sometimes even unfelt needs. This is another example in HP and Korea, Honeybee Network Creativity and Inclusive Innovation Award that we give every year. 180 rupees, IIT Madras. IIT Madras is not a resource-constrained institute. But he developed a very simple solution. He found that inhalers, almost 50% medicine doesn't get inhaled in the conventional inhaler. He put an air valve here. This increases it to up to 75%. Mankind company is doing a research to validate this. Second year student of engineering. And he has developed such a good solution. So frugal innovations can emerge from MIT, they can emerge from IIT, they can emerge from NCL. My favorite example of NCL is always that they had used a very low cost solution, I don't know, boric acid or something of that kind, which can remove the pesticide from the vegetables almost 80 to 90% at a very low cost. 100 rupees liter, and you put some 100 ml of that in water, and wash it with this. And such a good example of a good science for good application. What are the ways in which we can trigger frugal innovation? So I gave you one idea. When you remove the obvious out, that's one approach. Second, you identify the unmet need. Third, you also look at the unfelt need. Problem that I have not even realized, but you think of it, and then you develop a frugal solution. Mahatma Gandhi was very perturbed that the spinning wheel had very low productivity. From 2019 to 2029, he was trying. 2020 to 2029, he gave several awards of 5,000, 7,000 rupees. Nothing was working out. he announced a competition of 7,700 pounds. One lakh rupees at that time, maybe 10 crore today. And said, design it, change the design. And this came out by when he was in Yeroda jail. He had this peti charka. Frugal, durable, environment friendly, simple. And this came out after he wasted 10 years in trying different opportunities. So challenge awards can be another way in developing frugal solutions. Many of you may not know that US government had announced $500,000 award to change the design of the mask during COVID. Because we all know how difficult, how much painful the string of the mask used to be on our ears and the fogginess on the spectacles and several other problems. $500,000 award to come out with new designs of masks, which will have answered all these everyday questions. So frugal solutions can indeed be induced, not only spontaneously generated. Another pedagogy is Shovyatra, which we have walked. We have walked 52 Shovyatras so far, covering more than 7,000 kilometers in all these states. Why is it frugal? Because it doesn't cost much. Everybody bears their own cost, except some common shared cost that we bear. And village to village we walk, look for auditing, something different, something simple, something better, something affordable. But affordable, remember, affordable not only for consumer, but also for the environment. One of the basic flaw of the literature on frugal innovation is that almost 99% of the paper, if not 100%, focus on frugality as the hallmark of affordability, but not necessary. Please appreciate that. ₹1 sachet of tea or shampoo or something, very frugal, very affordable. Poor can also afford it. But calculate the cost of collecting the piece of plastic from 650,000 villages. It is very costly. It is not frugal anymore. So we believe that the pedagogies that we use must also be based on such values of frugality, circularity, inclusivity, so that we don't miss this point. One of the good examples, apart from, in one of the Shovyatras we came across in Purulia, these beautiful terracotta horses. So we asked them, why did you keep such beautiful terracotta horses under the tree? Somebody can take it, somebody can break it. They said, sir, we have not kept the most beautiful ones. We have kept the best ones. Why did you keep the best one? So that when our children walk by this street and while going to school in the morning, they see what the current standard of our community's best is, they must do something better. Oh my God, challenging the young generation every day with open source standards of excellence. Where did I read about it? I have never read it in any management book. But this is what I saw in a village of Purulia, West Bengal. So what I'm saying is that the frugality can be bred, our way of thinking. What do we learn from frugal innovation? I want to leave enough time for discussion today, so I will be short. Artifactual, that means a frugal solution developed in India is used as such in Kenya or anywhere else. That is artifactual. Analogical, metaphorical. A frugal solution generates in my mind a principle. Maybe I can do something similar, but in a different direction, a different way. We all know the story of Velcro, how it emerged from a cockle bud. A Swiss engineer developed in 1950s, 55. That is analogic, heuristic, as a model, as a principle. When Mehtar Hussain and Mushtaq Ahmed used a hand pump to irrigate his paddy field, it would take 4 days instead of 4 hours if he had used a diesel engine. But then he developed a principle. The principle underlying was when you, instead of 4 hours, if you give it 40 or 60 hours, the nutrients will not be leached. And the plant needs moisture, not water. And the fact that it is in water got a single wall doesn't matter. Doesn't the soil or plant don't care. So the principles underlying a solution, it can be used in industrial boilers. Instead of you having a uniform throughput of a liquid that you want to mix in a boiler, maybe you have it at randomized, and that might mix better than the uniform flow. Who knows? Some experiments will have to be done by Premnath and his team to see whether this is true. But the fact remains that the randomness sometimes can be better in managing certain processes than the systematic flow. And Gestalt is the fourth level, that is ecosystem level. We create an ecosystem, just as I mentioned, science, technology, institutions, and culture. We need all the four together to generate the mindset for frugal innovation. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say frugality without circularity or inclusivity is of no consequence. Frugality and inclusivity often go hand in hand, but not circularity, as I give you an example of session. So let us try to bring three in order. Frugality for manufacturer, frugality for consumer, good, but frugality for environment should be a necessary part of our search for frugal solutions. And of course, they should be accessible, affordable, available, no doubt. That will mean, how can we make supply chains more frugal? Now here is a very simple matrix. I've often used it, that you have material, method, application, and a delivery system. Delivery system refers to the supply. Supply in terms of patches for our insulin release in the body, or supply, as we know, in new age delivery systems. All the four, out of all the four, at least one should be new. And frugality will come when combination of these four things, material, method, and application in the delivery system, generates affordability, generates accessibility, generates availability, and of course, affordability not only for consumer, but also for them. So let me summarize and come to the last part. There is a climate change, economic squeeze, there's a need for affordability. Large number of people they have very limited income, and they have to be brought into their aspirations are increasing because they see media, they see television, they see all of that. Their aspirations are much higher than their capabilities. So we have to definitely provide urgency to this cause and circularity. So what am I saying? The takeaway from today's talk is frugal innovation for and from grassroots is imperative. Frugality actually is in all spheres and inevitable. Frugal lifestyle is sustainable and often heightens the probability of generating frugal solution. More knowledge and less material, and this is very important. Let me spend a few minutes on that. Not only because AI is at our hand, but it's also because as the knowledge intensity goes up in our products and processes, the material intensity must come down. That's what chips do. The material cost may be 2 rupees, 10 rupees, but they cost $2,000, $3,000. So there's so much of knowledge, software embedded in that. I have to give you a contrasting example. All farm machineries, tractor-drawn plows, tractor-drawn seed drills, fertilizer drills, none of them have depth sensor. So we don't know whether seed is falling at the right depth. Small, even a mechanical sensor, depth sensor would have done the trick. It's not there. So obviously, when we look at resources, we look at how efficiency is achieved. Solutions don't have to be very complex. They can be very simple, but knowledge is not only in terms of the software, but also in terms of the skill to find out where to attack the problem. You may have remembered that story where a person had a problem in his plant. He called a mechanic. Mechanic spent about an hour listening to the various parts of the engine, motor, whatever was happening. After that, he just put a small hammer on a particular part and the engine started working properly. The owner said, what is the fees? He said, $10,000. I said, what? For one hammer? He said, no, it's not for one hammer. It is to find out where that hammer has to be put. That is the price I'm asking for. That's the knowledge. That is skill. So please appreciate that knowledge intensity has to be increased and material intensity has to be reduced. So let me end by saying creativity counts, knowledge matters, innovations transform, and incentives inspire, but not just material incentive, as I said earlier, but also non-material, and also not just individual, but collective incentives. Honeybee Network welcomes your suggestions, ideas, and insights about Frugal innovations, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Professor Gupta. As usual, of course, very insightful talk. But before we get into the questions, somebody has asked to requested you to speak a little bit about the Honeybee Network and your other efforts. Do you want to take a couple of minutes to talk about that?
Sure.
Dr. Aarti Vyas has asked this.
No, sure. So Honeybee Network was set up out of the condition that intellectuals can also be exploiters. So, you know, in 1985, 86, 87, I realized that money lenders exploit in money market, landlord exploit in land market. The traders may exploit in commodity market. And the intellectuals exploit in knowledge market. We take the knowledge of the people, we make them anonymous, we never share with them our findings, we add value, we make products, and we never share them. One example just now. You will see how we can do justice to this. It's a very good question that you're asking me. It is very provocative too, because I want to say that for such a long time, I have not been able to yet get it into the mainstream ethical guidelines. CSI have set up a committee recently, which I was chairing. And when these guidelines are approved, that at least CSI will be one organization which will ensure that with the prior informed consent only knowledge will be taken. It will ensure that findings will be shared with the people. It will ensure that benefits, if any, come accrue by licensing those solutions, their share will go to people. These are the new guidelines that might emerge in due course of time. But if they have not happened as yet, neither UGC nor AICTE, nor any other science council, Indian Council for Science Research or Indian National Academy, none of these have yet incorporated these principles. So we struggled. And then we started finding out grassroots innovations. Mainly our focus, 90% has remained on innovation from grassroots. But 10% we have also looked at innovation by the students. So we give Yati Award, as some of you might know, Gandhian Young Technological Innovation Awards to the students. We give award to children. Some of the example I gave you. Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Ignited Mind Children Creativity and Innovation Award. We give HPN Kriya Award, both global and national, and we Network Creativity and Inclusive Innovation Award. And we try to work with the scientists like Premnath and others to see how we can blend the formal and informal systems of knowledge to generate value. You see, there is a huge knowledge that our people have. And never before so much knowledge was getting lost as in the current generation, because link between grandparents and grandchildren has never been more weak than it's today. And knowledge flow often takes place from grandparents to grandchildren, because it's a one-way street. They want to give, and children have to take. Parents, there is a tension. Parents always want more than they give because of compliance, regulation, and so on. So grassroots innovations movement we began, which now has acquired global currency as a language. Grassroots innovation is being used everywhere in the world now. But this term was not there in our language when we started, and we do that. I'll just give you one example. Let me share the screen. And let me see, just give me 1 minute. So that you can see what are the models that are emerging. And these models are worth paying attention to. So let me show you one example.
Are you able to share?
Let me see, yes. So let me show you one example. So this is an example of the new standards of accountability that we have to create. So this was a pain oil developed by my colleague Dr. Anamika and her team as a part of a startup Little Himalayan company based on knowledge of communities from Baramulla and helped by Dr. Mamta and her team at LM College of Pharmacy. And then what was done next? That is the thing to be seen. The names of the knowledge providers are on the label of the bottle. Tell me any product that you have seen in US, UK, Europe, Japan, or India for that matter, which provides the names of the knowledge provider on the label, which means not only that we should share the benefits, not only that we should conserve the benefits, not only that we should appreciate the knowledge system, but we should also acknowledge it on the label. So there are new standards. Just because West has not done it doesn't mean that we should not do it. So Honeybee Network is trying to develop new business models by which our accountability to the people can be highlighted and we can take it forward.
There are quite a few questions coming in. I'll take those. But before that, I just wanted to, the thing you mentioned about how frugal innovations is about a mindset and not about resource constraints, I think is quite an important point. And also, I think you talked about not only minimum resources in creating the innovation, but also in the use life cycle itself, right? As a whole, cost seen as a whole, all
Yes,
through their
yes,
life cycle.
life cycle is very important because we all know that circularity is the imperative. I mean, Indian government has set up rules, targets of reducing carbon intensity and so on. So life cycle analysis is important. I agree, completely important. Without that, we cannot assess the true cost of
Yeah.
material or true cost of innovation.
The other thing which I found was quite important had to do with also the fact that by virtue of being low on uh, resource demands in whichever way, it is also inclusive, right? In many cases, isn't it?
Yes, you see, the point is that when I am focusing on affordability, on that there is a consensus that frugal innovations are more affordable. That's true. But affordable for only consumer, that's a problem. People are not looking at affordability for the environment, for the earth.
Hmm.
That's tragic because that is causing so much. You know how not only plastic, now the microplastic. All of us are breathing microplastic, inhaling microplastic, drinking
Yeah.
microplastic. So all this is consequence of our neglect of the burden that we are imposing on the environment, which we all suffer because of that if we don't pay attention. Shall I pick
Okay.
up the question from the chat, or you will have
Yes,
to
let
wait?
me go with some of those, right. So there was a question from Ankur Tiwari. So please tell me, what is the social impact of frugal innovations in Indian societies? Name, can you suggest five most impactful, scholars on frugal innovation?
Very interesting that one of the things that one farmer told us in Kutch Shogyatsa many years ago, 20 years ago, he said, I took half an hour to tell him why chemical pesticides are not so good. I know NCL has done a lot of work on chemical pesticides. But I was telling them that for sustainability, maybe in certain areas, we should not use them. So one farmer, after listening to me and my discussion example, said, I understood what you're saying. So what am I saying? He said, you're saying that all plants which animals don't eat are potential source of herbal pesticide.
Mm.
What do we need? Toxicity. Why are these plants not eaten? Because they're toxic. And this heuristic has spread all over the country. You look at Andhra Pradesh, you look at any state, and they all are now Dashparni, 5-parni, whatever, different plants of toxic nature. They can extract and spray and control various kinds of pests. So this is one of the most pervasive example which came out in our work early, and we shared it widely and has become like a second nature with large number of farmers. So likewise, there are many examples of frugal innovations that have emerged. My regret is that there are many people who have done work on frugal innovation. There is a colleague at Central University Gujarat, Hemant. There are people in other places who have done a lot of work on grassroots innovations. My Vipin and lot of several people from NIF team, SRISTI team, GIAN team. The regret is that if we look at our databases, which are all open access, and the databases around the world, World Bank, FAO, WHO, we don't find. Ramnath, you will agree. Not even 500. We have got 50,000 or 1 lakh, and there are not even 500. So there is a problem here. The Philippines and Malaysia have developed a program based on our model called as GRIND, Grassroots Innovation for Inclusive Development. Malaysian Innovation Foundation had invited me when it was starting its work, and now has made a very robust program, both for children and for adults and for different sectors. Some countries have gone very far, but it is a task which remains to be done properly. We obviously have taken a lead in this regard, but we need to do much more. Mitti Cool is a favorite example. That fellow exports to 20 countries, clay vessels, clay fridge and all that. There is another innovator, Dharamveer, who makes food processing machine and dryers and so on. Rasing Taya, who makes biomass gasifier. So there are a large number in Northeast that has gone away very widely. So there are a large number of innovations which have diffused. And in terms of farm practices, far more. In terms of varieties, far more. Machinery less, because as I was telling NABARD chairman recently, that bank loans are the critical driver of manufactured products being bought, like tractor. 90% tractors are bought on credit. But there is no credit available for these machines that farmers develop. So naturally, only cash purchases take place. So that's a limiting factor. But otherwise, there's a huge potential there.
And perhaps many of these grassroots innovations probably spread organically, and it might be very difficult to necessarily track the scope of it,
You see,
how
if
much
you
it
ask
is.
me the factors, but that when the green revolution took place, large number of trials and demonstrations were done, and still are done for many technologies by even private sector. Where is the money a grassroots innovator has to do trials and demonstration? Even for testing purposes, if he has a machine to be tested, he has to make one more machine to be given to the testing center, isn't it? At his own cost. So there is a lot of gap in the ecosystem for enabling these people to help diffuse their innovations. But surely the potential is there. And I think when corporate sector, when the formal sector recognizes the value of these innovations, as I said, not only artifactual, don't reject an innovation because it doesn't concern your domain. Look at the metaphor, look at the principle underlying it, look at the ecosystem which has made it possible, and see whether some of those can be applied to your domain. That is important. People have not exploited full potential of every innovation, the learning value from each innovation.
Yeah. Devi has a question. Can you please give us some insights on the significance of leadership in frugal innovations?
Interesting, because leadership requires admission of the fact that not all knowledge belongs to one person or one place. And those leaders who listen to the shop floor, those leaders who listen to the lab attendants. In ACI course, Premnath, I asked a student to give me examples where they were stuck with their problem and the lab attendant solved it. Because lab attendant had got hundreds of PhDs done so far in that lab. Every student faces some problem first time. But many times when I ask this question, and I told DG in my Amrit lecture, that why don't you, when you have discussion on research projects, why don't we invite lab attendants also, or research assistants also to that meeting to discuss research proposal? They may have practical insight because they are the ones who do a lot of research and collect data. So I think there are leaders who will recognize that need for inclusivity. When it comes to ideas, there is no big and small man. There is no big and small mind. Ideas can come from anywhere. And therefore, we should be inclusive in listening to the lower level staff, lower level colleagues, younger students, and we should shop floor people and see whether they can help us to generate solutions to the problem that we might not otherwise find. And we have many examples of that. Even chemical engineering plants and other plants, we have seen that workers come out with some fascinating solution which otherwise may not have been thought about by the management. So leadership which listens, leadership which leverages, and leadership which links the idea of the grassroots level, of the shop floor level to the formal system, I think is the leadership of frugal innovation.
Yeah. There's a question from
People
Ravi.
outside.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
This a question from Ravi Tiwari. Why creativity and innovation has not been formalized into teaching as course in school and also in colleges? Currently, it's in bits and pieces through competition, hackathon, exhibition, etc.
Ravi, if you want to know the truth, I'm going to speak it out. The truth is, it is about diversity. It is not about monoculture or thinking. So unless you encourage dissent in the classroom, you encourage students to question you encourage students who disagree with you, and you reward those students who come out with an idea that you didn't know. I mean, I give A grades in my class. I still teach 4 courses at IMA. A grade is reserved for those who teach me something which I didn't know. Very clear. And it is eloquently made clear to everybody in the class. So I would say that you are right. You are right that it is not being done. I wish it was done. My wish. I hope in my lifetime it will be done. But it requires us to take steps at every level wherever we are. We are all teachers, we are all learners. So I think it will be useful that in our own context, we try to do that. Don't think that unless government does it or unless top level institutions do it, only then it will happen. Whichever setting we are in, at least with our subordinates, with our colleagues, we can start using pedagogies which are more inclusive, which are more appreciative, more empathetic.
There's a question from Sejal Darfale. Are there specific tools, frameworks, or methodologies for teams trying to innovate frugally?
I gave you 3 or 4 methods. One was the taking obvious out. So when I told children, mind you, from West London of Ahmedabad, Delhi, that cycle will be, you have to find out new uses of cycle, not for luggage and not for people transportation. They came out with so many ideas. What did I do? I didn't give these ideas to them. They gave the ideas to me. And I can tell you honestly, I was surprised by many ideas. I never could have imagined this. If somebody had asked me to write down 10 different uses of cycle, I would not have maybe thought about so many different applications as they thought. So question is 24 different ideas came out by different kids in a few minutes time. School kids from not so well endowed conditions. And that is one pedagogy, very effective one. I would encourage you to use it and send me some reports on that. Second, of course, is walking. I would say that both industrial Shodhyatra, which I had once written an article on my blog, you will find it at anuji.sachi.org, or you write on internet, industrial Shodhyatra, you will find it. My idea was that let us walk together on the shop floor with some retired people, with some scientists, with some fresh recruits, with some workers and some supervisors, and observe on left and right. You know, many machines which we bought and use in our plants need adaptation. So a lot of incremental innovations take place at the plant level, and we don't observe that. So therefore, it is useful. A very simple point we came out in the Kashmir. When you wall, you have to drill a nail or a hole for putting some fissure. A lot of material falls down on the ground. This fellow put a small shelf below the drill so that the debris will collect on the drill and not fall on the ground. Simple idea. Another fellow did what? When you paint the wall with a brush, a lot of drops fall on the ground and they have to be cleaned up later on because they dry up. So he's, why can't I use a small air vent, air pressure from in the brush, so that when the paint comes with the air thrust, it will spread more uniformly and less quantity of paint will put more coverage of the air. So there are many examples of this kind. Third, pedagogy is when you try to look at how we can learn from the existing models, but not only in architectural terms. I have repeated this point a few times, but I would still say that many times we reject affordable, sustainable solutions because we think it is not in my domain, it is not my work, it is not related to my sector. But look at the principle that the person has used. How did he remove the frills of not relevant things and additions? And then see whether that can help. But this is possible. This is possible. If children can do it, you can certainly do it.
Okay, good. I think that those are few tools. Maybe you can. There'll be another occasion. We'll cover some more as well. Hari Krishna had a question: how frugality in supply chain is possible in today's world with of so much disruption? The value chain you have showed method points towards frugal innovation in the process of supply chain. Can you just share a little more in that area?
Yeah, this is a good question. Let me give you a story. So once the founder of Nirma and Mr. Mehta, founder of Syntex, water tanks, were sitting together. And they said, look, when we supply our tanks, they go empty to Delhi. You supply your detergent, it is heavy material, but it also goes separately. Why don't we put detergent into the tanks? The detergent bags into the tank. Supply chains were merged. Two unconnected supply chains. Detergent and water tank have nothing to do with each other. And yet, merging the two supply chains gave a very frugal solution. Transportation cost came down for both the companies. So there are many examples in supply chain where we can ensure more efficiency, better environment. I give you example of water. Plants need moisture, not water. We are using sometimes even 100 horsepower motor to drill water from 1,500 feet and use it for irrigation, and even sometimes saline regions. That spoils the soil. But plants don't need water. Water, in fact, clogs the root zone and prevents aeration. And microbial population also does not grow very well in that environment. So how do we ensure that we allow water to be used very sparingly without loss of productivity? It's a frugal solution. So one farmer, Harbhajan Singh, Hisar, he did in cotton alternate row irrigation. Water became half, productivity remained same. And when you give less water, please remember the plants are less succulent, so less pest attack. No, it's not a good idea. Some farmers, in organic farmers, what do? When they see the time of pest attack, they give water stress to the plant. Instead, they don't like water stress plants. They fly over the field. So please appreciate that there are very many frugal methods of combining different supply chains, delivery systems, and materials so that we can develop good solutions in all sectors, And we need to do that. We need to do that to save energy.
Okay. There's a question from Tushar Batham. Sir, why are most of the frugal solutions not mainstream commercially successful products?
Simple reason, they can't afford to advertise in the newspaper and media. They cannot afford to do large number of demonstrations and trial. They have to depend on word of mouth. Now, there's one variety by Dadaji Khobragade in Chandrapur, Maharashtra. He developed a variety of paddy called as HMT. It was so good. And it diffused to 50, in 5-7 states, more than 100,000 acres. That's an example of word of mouth diffusion. There have been such examples in the past also, where farmer-bred varieties have diffused a lot when given a chance. But most of the time, it does not happen as much. So pull factor is little less strong than push factor when it comes to glass innovations. And in their case, we have not yet arranged. I recently talked to many people that we need to create an all-India coordinated trial and demonstration program for grassroots innovations, both machinery of all kinds, not just agricultural, industrial also. There are a lot of solutions. I mean, the example of the pine wood xylem as a filter. How many have just seen these filters being used? It's such a good piece of work. Nature Communication has published this work. What more scientific validity we need? It's a beautiful work, but we have not yet seen those filters available in the slums of our Bombay or Pune or Delhi or Ahmedabad. So I would say that, Tushar, your point is valid. It requires a lot of us to work together, We have to make our students also work on these ideas and see how they can help in spreading this culture. And I hope that those of you who are listening today, many of you will carry this spirit forward in your own domain.
Gauri Wagmare has shown she wants to connect with the Honeybee Network for her frugal invention.
By all means, I can see your comment on the on the chat now. Yes, you can. I mean, you can use our databases without registration and without any password. hbnkind.gyan.org, honeybee.org. All our database, medical plant database, has information about plant being used for animal, for human, and for agriculture, and in some cases even for industrial uses. All of this is given there. Use it. GIAN, undp.org.in, GRID, GRID, Grassroots Innovation, grid.undp.org.in is also open access database. All our databases are open access because we believe in democratizing knowledge. And while we are known for filing patents, but hardly 1,200 patents have been filed out of maybe a few lakh of knowledge that we have collected. So our predominant contribution of Honeybee Network is in open source, and we believe in strongly about that.
Yep. I think she's also trying to file IP. So that's good. Let if she needs help, she can reach out.
Sure.
While we are doing that, there's also a feedback form that's come online from our team. Please fill that up. It helps us keep improving things and also adding new topics for our this series as well. So there's one other question from Avinash Shivdas. In the present AI-driven world, I would like to hear from you on the role of AI in Frugal innovations.
I can tell you that it is very powerful, and I'll give you some examples. There was a plant found in Sikkim, and they were using it as a fodder, just as a fodder for animals. Pomelo, not sorry, just so a name will come in a minute. And then I did an AI search, and I used DeepSeek. And with all its limitations, it gave me so many new applications of this plant, which are high value adding. And I said, look, you can feed other fodder plants to the animal, but don't use this for, these are the possible uses which you can develop out of it, for various pharmaceutical as well as for agricultural uses and food uses. So what I'm saying is that AI can be a very powerful tool, and AI can work in different languages. So when I ask it in Hindi, it answers me in Hindi. So it is possible to use DeepSeek in different languages. I have tried it. Now, if we can make AI tool sufficiently trained on our literature, which is not on internet. The Dr. Watts, whatever that, there's a whole dictionary of plants that was written during British time. I forgot those volumes. They are not available on internet, but if they can also be fed into the AI knowledge pool, there are a large amount of information that labs have on herbal or phytochemistry, which have gone validated phytochemistry, or on trials that have been done. Many times scientists do a trial, publish a paper, and forget it. But entrepreneurs need that validated information for developing businesses. So if AI tools can be developed for entrepreneurs and for communities, there are two AI tools I wish to have immediately available. So if I'm developing, let us say, a small device for spraying, which is manually driven, but very fine particle, droplet particle, so that it can go under the plant leaf also, not only on the leaf. The smaller the particle, kind of a microstatic sprayer as they call, but these are all very sophisticated sprayer. I want to design a low-cost sprayer. Then can I get advice from the AI tool? And when I tried for some solution, it can give me step-by-step process, what can be done, what are available tools as building blocks that can be used. I wanted a circuit for a particular kind of thing, and it said me how this is how you can design the circuit. So I would say AI tool can be very powerful, alive for frugal innovations and for democratizing innovations for small entrepreneurs, startups. But we are not doing much on this. That's a problem. But we should do that. And this is open source. I mean, DeepSeek is available on GitHub. It is also available on other platforms. Okay, let us train it on our database. Let us train it on our work. And our soils are very variable. Our climate is variable. So AI tool will have to ask questions. Give me longitude and latitude, and I will generate you the specific recommendation for that. Your field. That is a possibility that AI can tell me at my field what I should do. It will have climatic variables modeled for that particular location. It will look at the soil. It will look at the other conditions. porosity of the soil, permeability of the soil, and all of that, and give me conditions, how much and how I can use resources.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of promise in this. I hope some of you will take it forward.
Professor Gupta, but there's one issue with AI, which is that it consumes a lot of resources. It goes
That is
against
true. That is true.
sustainability too,
That's
right?
true. That's true. So what we could
Something
do,
which you have to deal with as well.
that I
Hmm?
agree with you. So what we need to do maybe is kind of, I don't know if I'm talking nonsense or sense, but if we can have a small servers in the villages,
Mhm.
and let's say on a lighting, I told once Ashok Junjunwala that why don't we think of a electrical poles being used as servers? On the top of it, you hang a small server. For the whole community, nobody has to now pay internet cost to individually in their phones to the companies. They will use a intranet. And intranet will go to the internet only when it is most necessary. So I would say that if we can reside our data, all our database will be available for intranet. We will give it to every server of the village. Let all farmers scan it. For food, we have recipes, we do traditional food festival and all of those things. Everything we are willing to share. Let somebody do an experiment. Let us think about it.
Yeah.
Create an internet, save the internet cost and the process energy that is required when 5,000 people send an internet request for a song or for something. They can send it to the server in the village itself. All the songs can be put there. Isn't it? So what I'm saying is that it is not impossible to think of this idea. I completely agree with you that AI tools are requiring huge energy for servers and other things, and it costs huge amount of money for each query. So I agree with you that I've seen that literature, and I
Yeah.
do believe that it should be more sparingly than it is used now.
Yeah. So Avinash has just added in the chat box that I think there are a group of people working on small language models rather than LLMs to save water and ecology. Good point. We'll continue with the questions. We have limited time now, so I'll just stick to the next 2 or 3 questions, Professor Gupta. Okay. One is from Anup Chandran. What, according to you, are or will be the roles played by different actors in the frugal innovation ecosystem?
Everyone, an entrepreneur, a manager, a coding engineer, a scientist, a homemaker, everybody can play a role. Let me give you an example. When you eat onion in your kitchen, the upper scales of the onion you throw away because they're dried and they're thin. No use. Put them in the water overnight or boil it. And this is a wonderful cleaning agent, for antimicrobial agent for your kitchen. Now, this is a frugal solution, and there's good science in it. You can read it on the Google. Now, I would say even homemakers can share such tips, and scientists can validate them so that it doesn't become anecdotal. But just because it is simple, just because it is low cost, scientists tend to ignore. I'm not, pardon me for saying this. But look at the spawn silk. When we peel the cob, we throw away the silk fiber, isn't it? Which is the way through every grain is fertilized. I take tea of that corn silk because it's very good for prostate and very good for uterine infections and for UTI and other things. What I'm saying is, this time in my class, 45 students, I give them an assignment of looking at all such bio-waste materials and finding out new uses of them. So I'm saying that if everybody tries to find such applications, and then scientists validate them with contemporary knowledge and make them acceptable solutions, not just anecdotal solutions, because anecdotal solutions can be harmful also sometimes. So we have to be careful about ethics of knowledge. Then there is a role for all of us. We have not realized that for very many years, for about 9,000 years, or maybe 9,900 years, we lived with a very different system in our world. And we had very frugal solutions in our life. Suddenly, the industrial revolution has made us now desire more and more complexity. But before things go too wrong, let us try to balance our aspirations and our accessibility to solutions. So, Avinash, Anup, I would say that it is possible that I don't know what you do, but whatever you do, you have a role to play in.
Again, do fill up the feedback form. The next talk is on 13th May. Sheetal Bhanushali has a question. How can we indulge in collaboration with the Innovators Network? I think she means the Grassroots Innovators Network, so the Frugal Innovators Network.
Very good point. You can, if you're a designer, you can help in design inputs. If you're a writer, you can help in writing. If you're a software person, you can make a website for them. You know, I gave a lecture at MIT in Jammu Engineering College. And I gave in my talk, I have mentioned this many times, some of you might have read it on LinkedIn also, that a student should be encouraged to make websites of villages. 200 villages website in Jammu and Kashmir from 16 districts were made by the students. So it is possible. I mean, you can, I have a long list of pending work that have to be done. Please write back and take any mission that you feel very strongly about, any mission that you feel strongly about. You want to showcase, you want to blend, you want to invest. Even if you invest small amounts in support certain ideas of children. I'll give you an example. I'm sitting at the moment properly, but sometimes I lean forward. I'm not leaning forward sometimes, no? So the back will have problem. And back will have problems. So what do? We had an idea from two children, of Haritosh Anand and another girl from Lucknow, who said, you know, they should be either press stencils on the back. If you don't press them, the chair will not let you do work. Or this camera should sense my posture. If I'm not sitting properly, the screen should go blank and a message should come. Unless you sit properly, I will not let you do work. All of us, isn't it? Don't you think so? Large number of people. Lower back pain is an epidemic. Why can't some of you design that? So I have got hundreds of ideas of this kind of children which need to be converted into product and services for our benefit. These children are thinking of our problem, adults' problem. We suffer from this pain. And yet we didn't think about this idea. Children are thinking about it right. Please, for God's sake, engage. There's so much to be done.
Just another point, which I wanted to just announce that the presentations are this talk would be available on the YouTube channel of Only One Theme, so you can read that. And usually we keep out the presentations in the restricted site, which make available to the registered participants. So that's something which you can. Last question I'll take from Arvind Dhingra is, will the presentation recording? Okay, so that answers that. There's a question on YouTube chat, but I don't know if it's appropriate for this audience here. But I just thought I'll
See, I
pick
can
that.
only tell, I read that question. I will only say that designing things by looking at AI is not a difficult phenomena, because a lot of circuits designs are in open source. Those open source designs can be accessed, and therefore it is possible to access those designs and implement them. Nothing big about it. It's very simple. A lot of people use Arduino. A lot of people use other microcomputers for solving problems. So there's nothing very exciting about it, because it's known. I mean, anything which is in public domain can be accessed through the tools and be implemented.
Yeah.
As simple as that.
Yeah. Let us close on the note. Let me ask you, that's one thing you wish be done in the country to promote frugal innovations.
I would think that if every lab, now since I'm talking to a scientist, if every lab allocates 10% of its resources, human and maybe financial, not be 10, maybe 5% financial, but 10% human resources, and allocates it to add value to people's knowledge, my life will be wonderful.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think this will convey to as large an audience as possible. So thank you very much, Professor Gupta. Thanks for taking the time out. Really appreciate it. I will, on behalf of Mugdha and our team, thank you. I think we've gone a little over the hour. So thanks a lot, and really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
We'll close here, Mugdha, unless you have something to add. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll close here. Yeah. Thank you.